Caitlin Clark just experienced something that has the entire basketball world completely divided, and the people out there who are calling her new situation a disaster or throwing around negative labels are completely missing the entire point of what is actually happening right before our very eyes. Everyone on the internet is screaming that the Indiana Fever front office is actively sabotaging their own team and that Caitlin Clark is walking into a trap. But here is what the strategic numbers and the historical context are actually telling us. And I promise you, it is not what you think. Caitlin Clark just got put into one of the most awkward, forced reunions on national television, and instead of the basketball world stepping back to look at the genius of it, the entire conversation has devolved into a massive panic about a toxic locker room. Nobody is talking about the real reason why this specific move was made. If you stayed glued to your screen during the recent draft, you know exactly what I am talking about. The fans of the Indiana Fever and the die-hard followers of women's college basketball are absolutely losing their minds right now. People are convinced that management is trying to create a toxic locker room to make sure the team does not gel and cannot make a championship run. You go on social media and you see comments everywhere saying the front office is sabotaging the Fever. They are saying, imagine dropping 40 points on someone and then sharing a locker room with them the very next year. Fans are screaming that there is absolutely no way that is not weird as hell. +2. But if you stick with me until the end of this deep dive, you are going to find out exactly why the media narrative around Caitlin Clark right now is built on a massive half-truth. You will discover the one hidden strategic reality that completely changes how you view this entire controversy and the real reason why what happens to Clark in that practice facility right now matters for the future of women's sports. And trust me, it is so much bigger than just basketball. Now, just a quick note before we really get into the weeds here, because I know passions run incredibly high when we talk about these specific players. Everything you are about to hear is based entirely on publicly available information, verified reports from the players themselves, and our own deep film and data analysis. We are not affiliated with Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, or the WNBA in any capacity. We are not here to take sides in some imaginary fan war. We are just here to break down what the history and the numbers actually say about this situation. All opinions expressed are just for entertainment and informational purposes because we respect all the players involved in this incredibly complex conversation. Let us set the scene and go back to the moment that started this entire firestorm. Aaliyah Boston. Caitlin Clark and Raven Johnson are three players who spent years battling each other in some of the absolute most intense and bitter rivalries in the history of women's college basketball. And now they are suddenly teammates. The way they have been talking about it recently tells you absolutely everything you need to know about how awkward this transition is about to be. Because you have to understand that here is what makes this completely different from your typical draft day storyline, where a team just adds some fresh young talent to a growing roster. This is not just throwing some talented rookies together and hoping they figure out the playbook. This is bringing together players who have genuine, deep-seated history on the court. The kind of history where one of them literally dropped 40 points on the other person's head in a massive, high-stakes Final Four game. We are talking about the kind of history where millions of fans spent years aggressively choosing sides, creating massive narratives about who was the better player, who was completely overrated, who deserved more respect from the media, and now these three women are all supposed to just show up to the exact same practice facility, put on the exact same practice jersey, and pretend like none of that incredible history ever happened. Let us talk about Raven Johnson for a second, because you cannot understand the magnitude of this without understanding who she is. To the South Carolina fan base, she was everything. She was the ultimate defensive stopper, the absolute lockdown player who was specifically assigned to shut down the opposing team's best perimeter guards. She is the one who helped her legendary coach, Dawn Staley, build an absolute dynasty of a program. And without a doubt, one of her biggest, most highly anticipated moments was going up against Caitlin Clark in those massive high-stakes games where the media narratives were already written in stone before the ball was even tipped. It was pitched as Iowa's unstoppable superstar generational scorer going head-to-head against South Carolina's absolute lockdown defensive nightmare. Those games were not just regular basketball games, man. They had real, actual animosity stemming from the fan bases. This was not some manufactured fake beef created just to get clicks on social media, but it was genuine emotional investment from thousands of people who care incredibly deeply about their respective schools. +4. And now, imagine the scene. Raven Johnson is walking through the doors into a professional locker room where Caitlin Clark is the undeniable franchise centerpiece. She is the face of the entire organization, the singular player who almost single-handedly completely changed the entire trajectory of the Indiana Fever franchise. When you really sit down and process that dynamic, it is no wonder the internet completely lost its collective mind. I mean, you have people reacting to Aaliyah Boston talking about this situation, and they are saying things like, "I knew there was some tension, but Aaliyah spilling it like this is wild and the Fever drama never ends." The laughter you hear when these players talk about it, that is the literal sound of human beings trying to professionally process something that should mathematically and historically feel completely impossible. You have to put yourself in their shoes for a minute. Imagine looking across the locker room at the person whose face was plastered on every scouting report you studied for weeks. Imagine lacing up your shoes next to the person who handed you one of the most agonizing, heartbreaking defeats of your entire athletic career. It is objectively absurd in practice, which is exactly why Aaliyah Boston was completely right to just sit back and laugh about it. Because honestly, what else can you possibly do in that situation? On a recent podcast, Boston was talking about exactly this dynamic, and her quote is incredibly revealing. She said, "It is actually kind of funny because she was thinking, wow, I am really about to be teammates with you, and like you dropped 40 on our heads. Like that was really trifling. Like you did not have to do that." She admitted it is crazy because they actually did sit down and talk about it because she felt like they absolutely had to talk about it to clear the air. She went on to say it was just one of those things where they realized, wow, there is absolutely no beef, obviously, and it is so incredibly funny how the fans always seem to have way more beef and anger than the actual players do. Listen to how profound that statement really is. She says it is always entertaining because you go online and you read all this crazy stuff and you see fans completely hating on one person and then hating on another person, and then reality hits and you are actually out there playing on the same court with that exact same person. She believes it is going to be completely fine. She made the point that everyone is entitled to their own thoughts. But when you actually come into the building and you step onto the hardwood in the gym and you are ready to hoop, that is literally all it is about. She just laughs because the truth of the matter is, it really does mean something profound when you finally put that jersey on. When you wear the same colors, you are really on that person's side 100%. And all the noise and all the stuff that happened before, it literally does not matter anymore. +4. But let us be completely real here for a second. Just because the players do not have some deep, dark, personal animosity toward each other does not mean the competition they went through was not incredibly real. The facts remain the facts. Caitlin Clark really did step onto the biggest stage in college basketball and drop 40 points on South Carolina in a massive Final Four game. Raven Johnson really did everything in her physical and mental power to try to stop her, and despite her incredible talent, she could not do it. Those are historical facts that simply do not just magically disappear into thin air just because they are now wearing the exact same professional uniform. What Aaliyah Boston is actually describing when she talks about this is the mature professional process of completely compartmentalizing that shared history. You have to acknowledge what happened in the past. You maybe drop a couple of jokes in the team group chat on the anniversary of the game just to break the ice. You poke a little bit of fun at it because that is what teammates are supposed to do. And then you move forward together because at the end of the day, wearing that same jersey changes absolutely everything about your relationship. Suddenly, your financial and professional incentives align completely. Your individual goals become shared team goals. The person who used to be your absolute worst nightmare on the court is now the exact person who can help you win a professional championship. That is the absolute definition of professionalism, but you have to understand that it does not just happen automatically overnight, and it certainly does not happen without some incredibly awkward and difficult conversations first. When you look at how Aaliyah Boston talks about the fan beef versus the player beef, she is laughing because she knows the ultimate truth of sports. Fans always have infinitely more emotional investment in these rivalries than the players do. Fans are the ones sitting at home arguing endlessly on social media platforms about who is better, who is completely overrated, and who gets way too much credit from the media. The players, on the other hand, they just show up to the arena, they lace up their shoes, and they compete. +4. Now let us pivot and talk about the real reason why this is happening. Because if you think the Indiana Fever front office just threw darts at a board and drafted Raven Johnson by accident, you are completely out of your mind. Here is what makes the Indiana Fever's drafting strategy so incredibly smart and calculated over the past 2 years. They have not just been blindly taking the best player available on the board and hoping for the best. They have been intentionally and systematically building a roster that is specifically designed to make practice environments intensely competitive. Think deeply about what Caitlin Clark faces every single day she walks into that facility now. She has got Aaliyah Boston dominating in the paint, who can absolutely punish her if she makes a lazy or sloppy pass. She has got Kelsey Mitchell on the perimeter, who can easily match her incredible shot-making ability bucket for bucket. And now they bring in Raven Johnson, one of the absolute best perimeter defenders in the entire country, who is going to make her work and bleed for every single inch of space on that practice court. I need you to understand why that matters more than people realize, because the biggest, most dangerous challenge for truly elite generational players is not actually the games themselves. The biggest threat to a superstar is trying to stay sharp and focused when practice gets way too easy. When you are so gifted that you are clearly the best player on the floor every single day, you step into the gym, you can start to develop really bad habits without even realizing it. You start forcing passes that might work perfectly against your own teammates in a relaxed scrimmage, but will absolutely get picked off and taken the other way against elite playoff-level competition. You get comfortable playing with a certain amount of space that simply will not exist when the real games begin. Raven Johnson is the ultimate solution to that exact problem. She solves it completely. She is not going to give Caitlin Clark anything easy, even in a basic practice drill. She is going to be up in her jersey playing physical, aggressive defense, and that is going to make Clark an infinitely better player, which in turn makes the entire Indiana Fever team significantly better. The Fever are not just building a starting five. They are building an entire roster ecosystem where the practice squad can legitimately challenge and push the starters to the absolute brink. That is exactly how long-lasting championship teams develop their culture. +4. Let me break down the psychology of this front office move because it is a masterclass in roster construction. Haters on the internet want to call it sabotage, but basketball purists know it is genius. When you draft a player like Caitlin Clark, you are drafting a system. You are drafting a player who sees the floor differently, who shoots from distances that break traditional defensive schemes, and who operates at a pace that forces everyone else to adapt. But the fatal flaw of many franchises when they draft a generational talent is that they surround that talent with players who just defer to them. They surround them with yes men on the court. Players who just stand in the corner and watch the superstar go to work. That builds a great highlight reel, but it does not build a championship banner. The Fever looked at their roster and realized they needed grit. They needed that South Carolina toughness. Dawn Staley builds her players differently down there. She instills a defensive mindset where every single possession is a matter of life and death. By bringing Raven Johnson into the fold, the Fever are injecting that exact DNA right into the veins of their franchise. They are telling Caitlin Clark, we believe in you so much that we are going to hire your absolute worst nightmare to guard you every single day so that when you face the rest of the league, it feels like a walk in the park. Imagine the mental fortitude it takes for both of these young women. Raven Johnson knows her job is to make the golden child of the franchise work for her life. Caitlin Clark knows she cannot take a single day off because the woman guarding her in practice is the exact same woman she humiliated on national television a year ago. That dynamic is pure, absolute cinema, and it is the crucible where true greatness is forged. And this entire strategy brings us to the ultimate test of what the Indiana Fever are trying to accomplish. The college rivalries are incredibly fun to talk about, and they generate amazing headlines. And yes, without a doubt, there are going to be some very awkward moments early on in training camp. But here is exactly what is going to happen when the dust settles. Raven Johnson is going to show up to practice and immediately make life significantly harder for Caitlin Clark. Clark, being the ultimate competitor that she is going to respond to that challenge by getting even better. Aaliyah Boston is going to benefit massively from having two elite guards who can push the pace and get her the basketball in perfect positions to score. And the Indiana Fever, as an organization, are finally going to have a true defensive identity that they have been desperately lacking for years, because Johnson brings that relentless South Carolina mentality where every single defensive possession actually matters. But the real story that absolutely everyone is going to be watching closely is exactly how Caitlin Clark and Raven Johnson managed to coexist in Indiana, because that specific relationship is going to ultimately define the absolute ceiling for the Fever franchise. If they can figure it out quickly and maturely, if Johnson can push Clark to her absolute limits in practice and then step onto the court and lock down opposing elite guards in real games, if they can successfully turn their bitter college rivalry into deep professional respect, then Indiana instantly becomes a legitimate, terrifying championship contender. But there is a massive risk here too, if they cannot figure it out. If the initial awkwardness lingers and festers, if those old toxic fan narratives from social media somehow seep through the cracks into the locker room, if individual egos get in the way of the greater good, then the Fever will stay permanently stuck as just a good team that can never quite get over the championship hump. +4. Right now, Aaliyah Boston is sitting back and laughing because the situation feels absurd on paper. But in exactly 6 months from now, we will all know for absolute certain if this crazy experiment is actually working. We will see with our own eyes if Raven Johnson is firmly in the rotation. We will see if she is earning real significant minutes on the floor. We will see if she is genuinely making Caitlin Clark a better basketball player by challenging her relentlessly every single day. That is the real ultimate test of this draft pick, not whether it makes logical sense on paper. On paper, it absolutely does make sense because Johnson is incredibly talented. She perfectly fits a desperate need. She brings a gritty defensive mentality that the Fever have been completely missing for a long time. The million-dollar question is whether two young players who spent years of their lives on completely opposite sides of one of college basketball's absolutely biggest and most intense rivalries can check their personal egos at the door and build something truly special together. The Indiana Fever front office is making a massive bet that they can do exactly that. And based on how maturely both of these players have handled themselves professionally in the media so far, it is probably a very good smart bet to make. But make no mistake, It is going to require both of them to be significantly bigger and more mature than their own fan bases. It will require them to completely ignore the deafening toxic noise on social media. It will require them to intensely focus on what actually matters at the end of the day, which is winning professional basketball games in the WNBA. +4. Because here is the thing that you really need to understand. And this is the part that goes way beyond the basketball court. Caitlin Clark's story right now teaches us something incredibly profound that we can all use in our own daily lives. When you look at her journey, it feels like there is an entire system designed specifically to test her, to slow her down, to put obstacles in her way. People want to throw all these labels at her. They want to create drama where there is none. They want to pit her against her peers and create this toxic narrative that she is somehow isolated or protected or targeted. But what does she do? She does not go on Twitter and rant. She does not release angry statements. She just shows up. When an entire system seems designed to test your patience and your resolve, and the crowd still shows up for you anyway, that is not just luck. That is definitive proof that doing the hard grinding work in absolute silence eventually speaks so much louder than any manufactured controversy ever could. Caitlin Clark did not silence her critics by sitting at a podium and arguing with reporters. She silenced them by playing the game of basketball at a level that very few human beings have ever reached. Pressure does not build champions out of thin air. How you respond to that immense pressure is what actually does it. Clark walked into a professional league that frankly was not entirely ready for the magnitude of her presence. She carried the weight of expectations that absolutely no rookie in the history of the sport should ever have to carry. And despite all of that, she still showed up every single night and delivered. And now she is doing it again. She is walking into a locker room facing a former rival and choosing professionalism over pettiness. That is not just a compelling sports story. That is a blueprint for how to handle adversity in your own life. It is about the willingness to be imperfect in public, to face uncomfortable situations head-on, and to keep going anyway.